This task is found on page 135. And most of what we'll be discussing is actually part of the mission scanner achievement. Okay, so for those scanners out there, don't be surprised if you've heard this before. More times than not, we as an SUAS team will be called in to take pictures after a downed aircraft has been found. But on occasion, we may be asked to actually take SAR footage as part of the overall mission. For that reason, knowing what to look for in the search area is an important skill to have. If you've not had much experience at looking down, like down on things, your first couple of times will be enlightening. Objects appear quite different when they're seen from above and at a greater distance than usual. Even if you're very familiar with the territory, as seen from the surface, scanning it from the air will reveal features and objects that you had no idea were there. We're going to explore some of these in this task. You'll note that a high degree of concentration of these clues deal with downed aircraft, but we will also be discussing clues related to missing persons or survivors as well. Anything that appears to be out of the ordinary should be considered a clue to the location of the search objective. In addition to this piece of advice, the following are specific clues for which UAS technicians should be looking in live video and stored images and video files. So again, remember what we were talking about, where the technician may be looking at orthomosaics, maybe looking at, looking at the videos that were taken while the pilot and another technician have gone out to do some more pictures. So these are some of the things that you're going to be wanting to look for. But it's also important as a pilot that you know what to look for because you've got the initial tablet while you're flying. And so that you may see some of this, and then it allows you to control the SUAS into a more, if you're in a pattern situation, you may want to break the pattern and actually dive down and take a closer look. So let's start with some of the clues we might spot when looking for a downed aircraft. Virtually all aircraft have white or other light colors as part of their paint schemes. When seen against the ground, these light colors, as well as polished aluminum surface, provide contrast and will usually flash in bright sunlight. You'll get that glint. So aircraft windshields and windows are also very reflective. So if the angle's right, you will pick up a momentary flash from the sun shining down on it. So a flash from any angle always deserves further investigation. Sometimes aircraft catch fire when they crash. So if conditions are right, the burning airplane may cause forest or grass fires. You may not see that smoke until you put the SUAS in the air, and as it goes over the tree line, holy crap, what's that in the distance? And you'll be able to, and so thankfully, the SUAS is what it was able to get us to see that. So, and also survivors of a crash may build a fire to warm themselves or to signal, search it, So along the same line, fire causes blackened areas, and this may also give us a clue to the subject. Okay, if you've ever had a campfire and look at the area that's after it's been cooled down, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So look, you can see the blackened ash area of where the fire was here. There's a little bit of fire on that over here too. So if an airplane goes down in a heavily wooded area, it will break tree branches and perhaps trees. The extent of this breakage will depend on the angle at which the trees were struck. The primary clue to look for, however, will be color. Note that the interior of a tree trunk or branch and the underside of many types of leaves are light in color. These may be a bit harder to see on a picture or video taken from 200 feet up, but it may also be as apparent as the proverbial nose on our face, depending on how much damage there is. contrary to our picture here, when we're talking about discoloration of foliage, we're not talking fall colors here. We're talking about actual dead or dying leaves and needles of evergreen trees. So a crash that is several days old may have discolored a small area in the forest canopy. And this discoloration could be the result of either a small fire or broken tree branches. And again, we're not going to know what's up at the top of the canopy until we put the SUAS in the air and look down. So fresh bare earth, an aircraft striking the ground at any angle will disturb or plow the earth to some degree. We can see in this picture what we're talking about here. Because of its moisture content, fresh bare earth has a different color and texture than the surrounding undisturbed earth. Right? And you see that when you're seeing farmers till the soil, it's a much darker, richer looking soil than that lighter colored soil that's been dried out with the sun. So we'll come back to some clues to look for in a bit when it comes to wreckage patterns. But now that we've discussed some of these clues as they relate to downed aircraft, I want to touch on patterns we might encounter when we are surveying or searching for wreckage. Again, sparing no expense, I bring you Lieutenant Colonel Wayne Dennising from the California wing.
Right. As far as wreckage patterns, if you do come across an area where there's parts of an airplane there, if it's a big hole in the ground, it probably was a steep dive. A lot of times you'll get a whole line of wreckage there, and that's that creaming or smear, where basically the airplane flew into the earth in controlled flight and level ground. Little pieces everywhere. That's probably in-flight breakup. This hedge trimming. It's interesting that so many mishap aircraft just barely miss the top of a ridge, and so as a result, as it's just passing that ridge or near the top of the ridge, you can get this hedge turn. So here's some actual aerial photographs. And you see right here, you really can't see much of anything. It looks pretty much the same as the rest of the area. But as you get in closer, now there's something that just doesn't seem right there. You're not really sure what it is. Definitely doesn't look like an airplane, but it doesn't look like it belongs there either. Another example, green, everybody, everywhere it's lush green. It looks like a forest that's used for logging. It's fairly uniform. But you can see this area of discoloration. And if we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see it even better there. So those are the kind of things that you're looking for. Another example, more discoloration. What's that discoloration? Probably a fire that developed after landing. And here you can see it. You can see it much better. So it's quite seldom where you're going to see something like this, where actually you have a in-flight airplane that's intact. This airplane took off from an airport and for whatever reason wasn't able to climb, maybe a problem with engine power or weight exceeding the gross weight of the aircraft, stalled and then went right into the trees. There's an airplane that's broken up. You can see parts of it, the tail, part of the fuselage, one of the wings over here. And it looks like maybe the other wing over there. So in this case, you see there's debris everywhere. The spots here, all over the place is debris, which would indicate in-flight breakup. As you get in closer, you can see again pieces everywhere. Now, if you're lucky, you'll be looking for a guy that ends up in a cornfield and it's very easy to spot something like that. And you know, if somebody's doing a engine out and landing where the engine has failed, cornfield might be a pretty suitable place to land the aircraft. So that's another reason that you might see airplanes in a cornfield as opposed to some other kind of terrain. This shows you that many times, just like we saw on that in one of the previous pictures, an airplane will take off, and before it even gets more than a couple miles away from the airport, it'll end up impacting the ground. So if there's some issue with the flight controls, with wind shear, weight and balance, that's one of the first things we want to look at is the airport. If we have no other clues at all, is take a look at the airport of departure. R-22 is a small two-place helicopter, and I got several pictures here of a crash site. Jackhead is has to do with pumping oil or gas, some kind of a well in the desert here. And this unfortunate R-22 ended up right next to that jackhead. There's the jackhead there, and there's the wreckage from the helicopter. Here's an example of a power line, and there's a power pole, and actually the top of the power pole got clipped as the airplane went in. But surprisingly, even though the top of the pole got clipped, the wires stayed intact and just basically became disconnected from that particular pole. And there's an example. There's a picture right there. You can see the where the insulators were on the power lines, and the severed pole, and the lines are still intact. And I guess that's that same yeah, it is, because there's the jackhead there, the oil well. So that's the same R-22. Basically flew right into the jackhead. Anybody see where the aircraft might be in this picture?
Right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Right there?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look and see. Yeah, there it is. It's intact. See this large boulder here? That would be that boulder right there. So yeah, good eyes, guys. I mentioned earlier that it's quite common for aircraft to crash right near the point of departure. And here's another picture that bears that out. You can see the runway here. I'm not sure what direction he took off, but right next to the runway is where he impacted. And of course, here with all this population, that would have been discovered right away normally. But it's interesting that it happened so close to the airport, close up of that same accident. Well, we don't have a whole lot of snow in Hawaii most of the time, unless you get up on the top of Mauna Kea. And then, in fact, there is snow from time to time. So it's possible to be searching an area with snow. This picture, I'm having trouble myself finding the wreckage. Anybody see it? I don't.
I think it's where that middle tree is in the center to the right of it, to your 1 o'clock.
About here somewhere?
It looks like
Yeah,
it's at
right
the arrow,
there.
the bushes are like an arrowhead. You see the black thing sticking up? Yep, right there.
Yeah, okay.
Like for the first picture, I wouldn't have noticed the plane if there wasn't that the red circle on it, but this one, that's hard.
This one is definitely hard, yeah. And that's the point. If it's snowed and you got snow covering the wreckage, that's going to be a tough one.
Also, if you look at it, there's a straight line from that tree going up to the bushes where the airplane landed.
This line here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have lines like that in nature.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're looking for something that's unnatural, and sure enough, that is unnatural there, isn't it?
Wow.
Let's see. This one is this the same one? No, it's a different one, isn't it? Yeah. Well, finally, something easy. Now, here's a place with just some tumbleweeds out there that you could expect to see things for a long ways away. So you might have a search range of 2 or 3 miles.
Where's the airplane?
Where's the airplane? You must have your sunglasses on.
Binoculars.
Okay, so so the whole gist of this whole thing is looking for unnatural occurrences. Something just doesn't seem right there. Let's talk now.
Okay, so Colonel Dennison was about to talk about missing persons searches before I rudely cut him off there. So how about I start where he left off? You'll note that some of the clues that we are about to discuss can also be applied to downed aircraft survivors as well. So this is the first of those clues that not only help us search for individuals, but also may be a clue for a downed aircraft. It may not be as obvious as our beautiful corn maze here, but crop farmlands always display a pattern of some type, especially during the growing season. So any disruption of such a pattern should be investigated. A crop such as corn could mask the presence of a small aircraft wreckage, but the pattern made by the crashing airplane may stand out as a break in uniformity. Anyone stumbling through these crop patterns may also create a break in the pattern that we can investigate. As we saw in the video, water and snow are not visual clues, but they often contain the clues. For example, when an aircraft goes down in water, its fuel and probably some oil will rise to the water surface, making an oil slick discoloration. Other material in the aircraft may also discolor the water or float as debris. If the aircraft hasn't been under the water very long, air bubbles will disturb the surface. Snow will readily show clues. Any discoloration caused by fire, fuel, or debris will be very evident. So when looking for someone, they leave tracks in the snow, and that's very easy to follow. And of course, as we just stated, lines of apparent human tracks through snow should be regarded as possibly those of survivors. And we should also be on the lookout for the same clues in grass or sand. Scavenger birds, such as vultures and crows, wolves, bears, may gather at or near a crash site or at an individual. We have an abundance of turkey vultures here in Michigan. And like their southwestern cousins, the buzzards, they can sense the critical condition of an injured person and will gather nearby to await a person's death. If your camera catches these birds or animals in a group, you might want to express that to the incident command to have the area thoroughly searched. Downed aircraft survivors and other individuals may attempt to signal the SUAS if they see it. The type of signal used will depend on how much they know about the process and what type of signaling device are available to them. Be on the alert for anything out of the ordinary when scanning your pictures and video feeds. Okay, it could be something as easy as a flat, using a shiny surface to show a flash, or they might actually send out a laser beam. A lot of I've got a pen that's got a little laser on it. Cats love it, but for practical purposes, out in the field, it's something that I can use to signal. For various reasons, nighttime air searches are very infrequent, but as we become more proficient and knowledgeable, SUAS search flights might make a difference in finding people. Survivors and lost people will see the lights of our drones and hear our propellers. Light signals of some type will be the only clue to the search objective location. A fire, a flashlight, that might be the survivor's means of signaling. A laser. So at night, a light signal need not be very bright. One survivor used the flint of a spark of his cigarette lighter as a signal, and he was rescued. And our cameras can see those things that are that faint. Finally, you always need situational awareness and judgment on a search rescue mission. You might experience a false clue. Examples are, other purposefully set fires, campfires in known camping areas. If we're looking for a downed aircraft in the water, we might encounter an oil slick that may have been caused by spillage from ships, for example. Especially up here on Lake Superior, we've got a lot of ships, and so we do see those little oil slicks. We might also encounter aircraft parts that may not have been removed from a prior crash site. Although some of the aircraft parts may have been marked with a yellow X, you may not be able to see the mark until you examine the pictures or the videos more closely, because the paint has faded or worn off with age. Don't let these deter you from the goal. As we've been hearing all lesson, if it looks out of the ordinary, report it. And another one in the books.